This is an AQA GCSE Chemistry question. It's predominantly on the bonding topic, and I'm going to recommend you pause on each section, try the questions, and then review them as I go through the answers later. So to begin, here's parts A and B. Part C. Part D. Part E. Part F, and finally Part G, taking you to a total of 13 marks on this topic. So let's take a look at section A, where we've got these 5 diagrams, A, B, C, D and E, and we know that the circles are representing atoms and the different colour circles represent different elements, different types of atom. So use figure 1 to answer part A to C. Which substance is only one compound? So what we've got to do here is recognise what the difference is between a compound and an element. We are looking for something where there is more than one type of atom chemically combined, and the only place where we have that is B, where it's not mixed with something else. When we then go on to look at a mixture of elements, so an element can be made up of only one type of atom. So we need where the things are combined to be the same colour. And then we need more than one example of that. And the correct example here is D. And then we move on to part C of this question. What represents a mixture of an element and a compound? Well, taking a look, what we have over here is an element, because there's only one type of atom, and I've highlighted those in pink. And we also have compounds, which I've highlighted in purple, and they are mixed together. So the correct answer is E. You'll notice on this particular question there was an error when it was published. So it is E, even though that was not shown on the question. That would not happen in reality in an exam that you were sitting. Okay, moving on to part D, and we are drawing one line from each method of separation to something that we would separate in that way. Now, chromatography is covered a number of times across GCSE and again in A level. At GCSE, we look at relatively straightforward examples. Indeed, you've probably looked at them in Key Stage 3 as well. But it allows you to separate different substances with different solubilities. The most common example, and the only one that really works from the list here, is blue food colour from a mixture of food colours. Crystallisation is another name for evaporation, where we will evaporate away the water and leave crystals. Again, there's only really one that fits the bill on that, and that's copper sulfate being collected, the blue crystals, by evaporating the water in blue copper sulfate solution. We move on to part E. Sand doesn't dissolve in water. A student separates a mixture of sand and water by filtration. You must draw a diagram of this apparatus and label where the sand is collected and where the water is collected. I would be advising that you label every component of any diagram that you draw in chemistry in an exam or not. Now, the key things that we're looking for here are, is your diagram two-dimensional? Is it cross-sectional? And is it labelled? And I've done an example so that you can see what we're looking for. I have labelled the filter paper, the filter funnel. I've shown where the sand will collect. I've drawn a beaker below. The water has gone into the beaker, and that is clearly labelled. Moving on to part F, a student distills a sample of salt solution to produce pure water. What temperature would you expect the thermometer to show? Now, this is a really common question, and if you are using water as the solvent, the answer will always be the same, because the water boils, gets to 100 degrees, rises up, and it reaches the thermometer. So it will do that at its boiling point. Correct answer, 100 degrees. And finally, part G, describe how the process of distillation shown in figure 2 produces pure water from salt solution. Now I'm going to put down a number of points here. We heat the solution so that the water evaporates. The water will then move through to the condenser where it cools down and where it then condenses. And then the pure water can be collected in the beaker. Now there's 5 different marking points there. You would need to get 4 of those to be credited with the mark. That takes us to the end of the question. Thank you for listening.